Fairfax County, Virginia. This is our agenda today. We will begin with some background information, then move to describing the proposed project, followed by an overview of the protocol for the commentary period. We will then hear public comments and discuss next steps. The general plans, the environmental evaluation, including the parking analysis for this project, are available online at these links in the presentation. 2 copies are also available at the back of the room and the registration desk. Notice of this hearing was made by publication in the Washington Post, and ads were placed in the Falls Church News Press, EREF, El Tiempo Latino, and the Washington Hispanic. The docket was sent to all local governments and other organizations within the compact zone, as well as posted on WMATA.com. There are 3 ways to provide comments at this evening's hearing: in person, via Zoom, or over the phone. If you're with us in person and would like to provide testimony, please see the staff at the registration table, if you haven't done so already, to put your name on the list of speakers. For those of you who are pre-registered and will be joining via Zoom, we ask that you remain muted with your camera off until you're called upon to speak. And those who are participating via telephone, if you would like to provide testimony, please press *3, which will put you in the speaker's queue. Elected officials, if we do have any this evening, will be allowed 5 minutes, and everyone else will be allowed 3 minutes. Extra time will be given for translation if needed. If you have copies of your testimony and you would like to have them distributed, please hand them to Yasmin, whose hand is raised, and she'll be able to work with you to get those distributed tonight. I now call on Mr. Segerland for the staff presentation. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair Smedberg. The purpose of the hearing is to obtain public input on the following changes to the transit facilities at the West Falls Church Metro Station: reducing bus bay capacity from 8 bays to 4 bays, reducing park and ride capacity from 2,009 to 1,350 to 1,400 spaces, reducing kiss and ride capacity from 64 spaces to approximately 20 spaces, and eliminating the 68 paid on-street metered parking spaces. Before discussing the changes any further, let me give some brief context or background about how we got to this meeting today. As many of you may know, the West Falls Church Station opened in 1986 and had around 10,000 riders per average weekday until 2014, when the Silver Line opened. This new transit service provided new options for many of the customers using West Falls Church, and as a result, ridership at the station dropped to around 2,500 riders per average weekday in the years leading up to the pandemic, leaving the transit facilities significantly underutilized. This new transit service provided. Then in 2017, many of the City of Falls Church began an initiative to redevelop the nearby school site, which led WMATA to think about the potential to redevelop its property and resize the bus and parking facilities. Subsequently, in 2018, WMATA initiated the process with Fairfax County to replan the station and transit facilities, which was later approved in 2021 by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. In that same year, the WMATA board approved a joint development agreement with Falls Church Gateway Partners Metro and provided authorization to hold this compact public hearing. Regarding the changes to the transit facilities, we'll cover them in the following slides, one by one. For the bus facilities, the project proposes a reduction in capacity from 8 bays to 4 bays. This aligns with pre-COVID bus service demand patterns and currently there are only 3 local bus routes serving the station and 1 commuter route. In the future, if in the future there is a need to expand the number of bus routes using the station, these 4 bus bays can accommodate a significant increase in bus services. However, the project design will still retain the potential to expand up to 8 total bus bays if needed. I'd like to briefly make a note about the Route 7 Bus Rapid Transit Service, or BRT, being planned by the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. It does not anticipate using the metro station property, but will travel nearby with stops on Leesburg Pike adjacent to the City of Falls Church School site. Regarding access, the entrance to the bus loop will still remain on Metro Access Drive, but the exit will now be onto Falls Church Drive. The project will also be designed so that no private vehicles are allowed in the bus area by bays 1 through 3. As for the park and ride facilities, the project proposes a reduction from 2,009 spaces to 1,350 to 1,400 spaces. That will be achieved by closing the south lot, keeping the garage, and slightly modifying the north lot. This capacity also aligns with pre-COVID demand patterns and includes additional capacity to accommodate future growth in households in the station's park shed that may result in increased park and ride demand. Regarding the north lot, the project may redevelop it into a parking garage as part of its last phase, estimated to be around 2030, which is intentionally strategic, giving WMATA time to monitor the return of ridership and parking demand. At that point in time, WMATA proposes to conduct and present a new parking demand study to determine the final proposed parking capacity that should be reconstructed on the north lot. The access to the parking facilities will remain with entries and exits available from the existing primary road network, Metro Access Drive, and Falls Church Drive. As for the Kiss and Ride facilities, the project proposes a reduction from 64 spaces to approximately 20 spaces. Could we flip to the next slide? Thanks. Great. Taking an approach similar to the park and ride facilities, this capacity aligns with pre-COVID demand patterns that had been changing in the past decade towards pickup and drop-off activity that preferred the use of the curbside rather than the angled parking spaces, and also had shorter dwell times per vehicle. The proposed capacity also includes additional capacity to accommodate future growth in households in the station's park shed that may result in increased Kiss and Ride demand. The Kiss and Ride facilities will remain accessible from Metro Access Drive, and a new, more direct access will be available from Falls Church Drive. I'd like to note that the final design of the Kiss and Ride parking spaces is still ongoing and will be determined in coordination with the Fairfax County entitlement process, but the map on this slide shows the general vicinity of the planned Kiss and Ride parking area. Regarding the paid on-street metered parking, this is a unique condition as it is not a standard WMATA facility like the Kiss and Ride. Given that the redevelopment envisions a new street grid with abutting private uses, the project proposes the elimination of the 68 on-street parking spaces as a facility subject to the WMATA Mass Transit Plan. However, significant on-street metered parking will exist within the comprehensive development plan for the site, which is likely to exceed the capacity existing today. The project just wants the flexibility to manage that design through Fairfax County's entitlement process. I would note that the party operating the meters is also still to be determined, and that it could be WMATA or the private developer. Finally, as part of the compact public hearing, staff has prepared an environmental evaluation for the project to assess any permanent or temporary impacts and to identify opportunities to minimize or mitigate them. This analysis identifies whether there are impacts to traffic, air quality, noise, and stormwater as a result of the changes to the transit facilities, noting that impacts related to the private development are subject to the review and approval of Fairfax County's entitlement process. And its final built condition, the analysis indicates that there are no permanent impacts and only minor temporary impacts related to the construction activities. Regarding traffic, there should be no permanent impacts given that the parking and bus capacity and trip potential is being reduced. However, there will be some improvements given the enhanced and safer pedestrian and bicycle access being provided on site. During the reconstruction of the transit facilities and road network, an interim operations plan, often called a maintenance of traffic plan, will be established to ensure access for all travel modes to the West Falls Church Metro Station, as always provided throughout the project. A quick side note on the traffic analysis: the appendix to the environmental evaluation with the detailed study was accidentally omitted from the website. It has since been uploaded, and we are extending the deadline for public comments by 10 days. Then regarding air quality, noise, and stormwater, there are also no permanent impacts anticipated as a result of the transit facility changes. However, there may be some minor temporary impacts during reconstruction of the transit facilities, like dust, equipment noise, or sediment and erosion risk. These will be mitigated using typical construction techniques and following Fairfax County's requirements for construction operations. This concludes my presentation on the project, so I will turn the floor back over to Chair Smedberg to go over the procedures for tonight's hearing.
Thank you, Stephen. Briefly, I will cover the procedures that we will follow during the hearing. We will be alternating between the three ways we are accepting testimony tonight: in person, via Zoom, and over the phone. For those of you here in person, you can start making your way towards the podium once your name is called. However, if you need a microphone brought to you, please raise your hand and we will get a mic to you so you can announce your name. For those of you who have pre-registered and joined via Zoom, we ask that you remain muted with your camera off until you're called on to speak. For those of you participating via telephone in the speaker's queue, when it's your turn to speak, we'll announce your phone number and you'll receive an automated message that it's your turn to speak. Again, elected officials, if there are any present, will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. Everyone else will be allowed 3 minutes each. Extra time will be given for translation if needed. We have a timer that will count down how much time you have left to speak. It will give you a warning beep when you have 20 seconds left, and will beep continuously until your time is up. The timer is important because we have potentially have a lot of folks who want to speak tonight. So we ask that you stay within your allotted time to ensure that we can hear from everyone who wants to provide testimony. In addition to the opportunity to speak at tonight's hearing, Metro also welcomes written comments on the proposed changes, and we'll go over those instructions a little later. Our first speaker, we have one here in person, Mr. Aaron Wilkowitz. Aaron? Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey there, my name is Aaron Wilkowitz. I live in the neighborhood. I'm about a mile away from the West Falls Church Metro Station. I just want to say I'm unequivocally extremely excited about all the development that's being proposed, and couldn't be happier with the proposals that are being made. I lived in Arlington for many years, went and commuted via Metro across most of the North Arlington Metro stations, Ballston, Virginia Square, Clarendon, et cetera. And a lot of the features that made those metros so accessible, so inviting, having parks nearby, having it very pedestrian friendly, I loved all of that. And when I moved here, I didn't see as many of those features in the West Falls Church Metro Station. And I'm extremely excited that that is now, it seems like we're getting much closer to that phase, right? Getting to more usable, more pedestrian friendly, more bike friendly, areas right around the metro station. In particular, what I found convincing is that it seems like a lot of the West Falls Church's construction was done before the Silver Line existed. It was done with something else in mind, where people used to drive in from especially kind of the 267 area, whereas now there's all sorts of metro stations on the Silver Line. We don't need as big of a parking lot. We don't need as many parking spaces. And what we have a severe shortage of is housing. So the idea that we're taking away parking spaces, we're adding in housing to make housing more affordable for folks everywhere in the area is just incredibly exciting to me. So just, again, want to say unequivocally excited and really, really proud of the developments that are happening in my neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkowitz. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Mark Kiefer, and Mr. Kiefer is joining us via Zoom. Good evening, Mr. Kiefer. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Let me get my cursor. I'll be reading, so my eyes will be a little bit off the screen. So bear with me. I live on Casemont Drive, a half-mile east of the West Falls Church Metro Access Road that comes out to Haycock. I'm a Metro supporter who used Metro regularly for years and would like to see this service improve and prosper. However, I have several concerns about the impact of the proposed changes on surrounding communities. The goals in the environmental evaluation include improved conditions to existing communities, improved transportation safety and efficiency, enhancement of bicycle and pedestrian safety and access. These are all admirable goals that most of us support. Unfortunately, without significant infrastructure improvements, these goals will not be achieved outside of the development bubble, the boundary of the development parcel, particularly in the neighborhoods northeast of the station along Haycock and Great Falls. Many of us are concerned that traffic generated by the development, along with expected traffic from the far more densely developed Falls Church City project and the Virginia Tech parcel, will overwhelm local streets, resulting in traffic backups, cut-through traffic, and increased pedestrian safety issues. The poor infrastructure we're living with makes it uncomfortable for many to walk or bike to the metro station from our nearby neighborhoods. This is before any of this new development. The unsafe conditions discourage children living right next to the metro station from walking or riding bikes to and from Haycock Elementary School. Many of us are fearful of accidents at the intersection of Haycock and Great Falls. The development as proposed includes nothing to improve the deficient infrastructure just outside the parcel boundary from the access road east toward Great Falls Drive and Westmoreland. If you would walk or drive this stretch, it is obvious that Haycock Road, especially crossing the Route 66 bridge, steps from the access road, is very dangerous for bicycles, with the paths too narrow for multiple bicycles or wheelchairs. With the changing focus here a little bit, with regard to the reduction in park and ride and kiss and ride areas, I agree that these areas are underutilized, very much so, even before the pandemic, and are better used for housing and businesses. So I'm not against the development. However, I'm concerned with how WMATA will regulate the reduced parking to ensure that metro users will not be crowded out by the new non-metro riding population working or living around the station who may use the spaces intended for riders.
Mr. Kiefer, I'm going to give you another 30, 45 seconds here.
In sum, while I support improvements around the metro station, they should be accompanied by significant infrastructure improvements connecting Metro's neighborhoods, or a bad situation will only get worse. And thanks for the additional time.
You're most welcome, and thank you for your comments. And again, you'll be able to submit those if you'd like in writing. We'll have instructions later on, so you may want to stay online until the end of the meeting. All right. And I would also like to recognize, we have been joined by Fairfax County Supervisor John Faust. Welcome, Mr. Faust. Appreciate it. Do we have any other speakers joining us on the phone or via Zoom? No other speakers?
No.
Do we have any other speakers signed up in person? No? Okay. So as I said earlier, in addition to having the opportunity to speak tonight, Metro also welcomes written comments on the proposed changes, and you may submit written testimony, but it must be received by 5 p.m. on or by November 10th, 2022. Testimony can also be submitted online at wmata.com/plans and projects. Again, wmata.com/plans and projects. You can enter free-form testimony or upload letters or other documents if you so choose. If you send something by mail, please send it to the Office of the Secretary, WMATA, 300 7th Street Southwest, Washington, D.C. Again, Office of the Secretary, WMATA, 300 7th Street Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20024. Please reference West Falls Church Public Hearing in the subject line. This testimony must also be received, not postmarked, but received by November 10th in order for it to be included in the hearing record. Your comments will become part of any public record and will be reviewed by the Metro Board of Directors. Changes to the project presented here tonight may be proposed in response to testimony received and subsequent staff analysis. Again, this was our opportunity to hear from you, so we want to thank all our speakers here tonight. Please note that all statements, including any personal information such as name, email addresses, your address, or telephone number that you provide in any statement are releasable to the public upon request and may be posted on the WMATA website without change, including any personal information provided. Next steps, the public comment period, again, will close on November 10th, 2022. Staff anticipates releasing the draft staff report to the WMATA website in the winter. Once the staff report is released to the public, those of you who provided comments will have the opportunity to review the report to ensure that we captured your comments accurately. That review and comment period will close 2 weeks after the draft staff report is posted. Staff anticipates that the final staff report and supplement will be submitted to the WMATA Board of Directors for acceptance in the spring of 2023. Now we'll have all the background out of the way, so we've had our testimony. We want to thank you all again for joining us here this evening. I'll ask one last time, was there anyone who arrived late here that would like to speak before we close the hearing? And no other Zoom or phone participants?
No.
Okay. Again, as a final reminder, we will be accepting written comment until 5 p.m. on Sunday, November 10th. And again, testimony can also be submitted online at wmata.com/plans and projects, and that's all one word. And again, by mail to the WMATA Office of the Secretary, WMATA, 300 7th Street Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20024. Thank you all, and have a good evening.